Welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. We are coming to you today with another coaching topic. And this is one that we've talked a little bit about in the past on the podcast, but Michael and I have just had discussions about this in my coaching sessions. So we thought it would be a good topic to bring to you as well. So we've talked about how leaders can play different roles in their position, and we're going to unpack some different things that they may do depending on the situation. So, advisor, trainer, the manager, and the coach. And we're going to unpack those a little bit and help you as a leader figure out when those roles might be applicable to when and where and who. With that, I'm going to welcome in my co host, Michael Regan. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, always glad to do these with you, Kathryn. And I think this one has come up in both contexts. So I'm hoping it's going to be an interesting topic for our audience, because if we've got leaders on the call, they will certainly recognize each of these four roles. And if we've got folks on the call who work within a leadership structure and they maybe have failed to connect with their leader in a meaningful way, maybe this will help unlock an opportunity for you in which to connect better with the leader that you work with. So whether you are that leader or you're trying to connect with a leader, I'm really hoping that digging into each of these, not just what do they mean, but what do they look like and what does a healthy version of them possibly look like for you? Let's see if we can help someone unlock the key of their leadership role.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's kind of talk through each one of them because I think that'll help us understand what each of those four mean and then when they might come up in a leader's role. So the first one I have down is advisor.
Yeah, I think this one makes sense to a lot of people. So I'll use you and I in this context. Maybe for all of these, I'll use you and I just for illustration purposes. But if you've come to me as a leader, so if I'm the leader in your role in your organization, and you've come to me asking for advice, typically what you're looking for, if that's the scenario, is you recognize I have some experience with something that maybe you'd like to leverage. Doesn't mean you haven't had experience with it, by the way. Just means that you see that I have and you'd like to get my perspective on it. And so you recognize, but you're driving the agenda. The point of this one is that you have an agenda of what you're hoping to accomplish, and you'd like to get some advice on it from someone, and you're trying to seek their experience. So this is a key orientation point of this role, is understanding who is, seeking this advice because they have the agenda, and then who's giving the advice because they have the experience. And so in this one, if you're a leader and someone's seeking you as an advisor, it's important to recognize, if you're in that role, that they're not asking you to tell them what to do. They're asking you what you've done in a situation like this in the past, or if you've experienced someone who's been in this situation in the past, how did they handle it? And so it's really important that we see that sometimes that happens with a leader. You just want their advice, and you have to be really clear on, you're setting, then if that's the person coming to the leader, you're setting the agenda for this and you're asking them to leverage their experience. So that's the advisor. We can go around and maybe look at a few others, but let's, what was next on your list?
What was next is the trainer.
Okay, so this one is interesting because it's similar to the advisor in this sense. You go to a leader in your organization for training or teaching or some sort of direction. Same as the advisor, they have a skill or an experience that you're trying to leverage, but the difference is they are going to run the agenda, not you seeking it. So when you're seeking advice, you get to ask the questions of what you want advice on. When you're seeking training, they get to set the agenda. Here's the curriculum that we're going to follow. Here's the methodology that you're going to buy into. Here's the system. Here's the platform. Here are the tools that you're going to use. So the nuance on those may seem slight at first, because in both cases, you're leveraging someone else's experience. But if you're the one seeking that leader, in one of them, you just want their opinion, and the other, you want them to show me how to do it, walk me through it, take me through the steps. And those are two different things, because in that case, you would say clearly, yes, please tell me what to do. Versus the advisor, you might say, I might take your advice, but I might not. I just want to see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what was next on your list?
Then the manager.
Okay, well, the manager is one that, maybe gets most commonly used because it's often a title of a leader. Many leaders have manager in their title. They could be a branch
Mhm.
manager, they could be a regional manager, they're divisional manager, they have some sort of manager role. But what does that word mean? Often, if you follow the manager, they also are going to have an agenda. Let's say in a corporate structure, they have a mandate over the people they manage or the territory they manage, the P&Ls they manage, all the things that they manage. So they get to set the agenda based on what they expect from their team. So if you're going to a leader and you're expecting them to show up as a manager, expect that they have expectations on you in your role, and you're going to meet those based on whatever criteria that they've agreed upon with the corporate structure above them.
Mhm.
But the difference there is they're now going to leverage your skill, not the leader's skill. So if you go to a leader in a management role, they're going to put it back on you. Well, Kathryn, I need you to close a certain amount of business every month that we agreed upon. So what are you going to do to find that business? Where are you going to develop your partnerships? Where are you going to develop your follow up with your past clients? Where are you going to build your pipeline? And so it's an interesting nuance there. So similar to the trainer, they've got an agenda, they're going to hold it, but the trainer is going to tell you what to do. The manager is going to expect you to figure out what to do. Like it's not
Mhm.
their job to do it for you. It's not their job to show you how. It's their job to make sure you get held accountable to what you said you would do. So again, similar, but a nuance. And I think that leaves a fourth.
The coach.
Yeah, this one, I'm going to say my coach, Daniel Harkavy, helped popularize this term, becoming a coaching leader. And I think in the book that he wrote back 30 years ago that helped introduce that phrase into the lexicon of management leadership as an ideology, it was really built around the idea. Now, if you think about all the ways that I've nuanced the first three, now, if you look at this relationship, that leader is going to put, if they're going to put on their coach hat, they are going to expect you, the person that they are coaching, to not only bring the agenda, but also bring the skills. And it's their job to get the very best out of you. But you're going to set your own personal goals. You're going to set your own commitments. You're going to create your own life plan or your own business vision or focus plan. You're going to draft your own time block. All those things put you as the follower, I guess, in this position for following the leader, as feeling a sense of ownership, as feeling a sense of personal pride in your own self leadership. And so that kind of leader is really going to work well with someone who has maybe an entrepreneurial spirit. They like to do things themselves, they like to do it their way. And so a coaching leader can really get a lot out of that person, because instead of telling them what to do, or instead of advising them on everything, or instead of holding them to some sort of corporate structure standards, they're always looking back to them to say, tell me again what you really want. Remember, this is who you are. This is why you said you want it. How can I help you remove distractions and keep going? So again, a slight nuance, but really important, because a pure coach sets their own agenda aside, sets their own skill set aside, and focuses completely on the person they are coaching. And that's different than the other three. So yeah, those are all four of them. So can you see them clearly in terms of how they're unique?
Yeah, what I was going to bring up is maybe an example, like one thing, and then I'll try to
Yeah.
interpret how a manager might be with that specific topic. So let's just bring up profit and loss, a
Mm-hmm.
P&L.
Mm-hmm.
And so the advisor might say, the branch manager goes to the regional and says, "Hey, I need some help. I have some questions on my P&L. I just need need some advice on this or that." Okay, great. Versus the trainer might be, "Hey, we have three people who all have P&Ls. I'm going to give everybody a quick 10-minute info session on what to look for in your P&L." Versus the manager says, "Hey, I need your P&L to get positive, and you have 90 days to do that." Versus the coach says, "Hey, in regards to your P&L, what are some goals that you have, and how can I help you get there?"
Yeah, you've really summarized that nicely, and I think
Okay.
that's really important, because the perspective of that one in all four cases is you are essentially going to a leader and you're looking for which version of that leader you need most. And we could, give a scenario where we flip that around. Now, let's say you are the leader and
Mm,
you've got people that you need to lead. You have to decide what your agenda is to know whether or not you're going in that trainer mode, or you're going in that manager mode, or perhaps you're setting that pride aside for a moment and you're trying to draw an agenda out of them because you want to see where they are. And they may then need advice. They may then say, no, no, I got this. Just, keep me focused. Don't let me get distracted. Help me
mhm,
take this off my plate so I can stay focused on that. And so whether you're looking at it from the leader's perspective or you're looking at it from the person they're leading's perspective, you did a nice job of highlighting the difference on those with a P&L. And I think you could really go and pick any topic you like, but here's where this one matters when I have coaching discussions is very often, because someone is naturally bent toward one of those four, they start to lead consistently with one of those four. And they
mhm,
struggle to recognize when they need to perhaps shift to another one. And it happens both ways, by the way. You could be the person seeking leadership, and you might, be signaling what you want, but you don't recognize there are other options you could seek
mhm,
from them. I'll give you a great example of this one, Kathryn, because this happens, gosh, all the time. Someone will ask me, so I'm the coach in this scenario, but they'll ask me, quit helping me figure out what I think. Just tell me what to do. So they're looking for me
mhm,
to now slide into that trainer role, that teacher role. Just show me how to do it, tell me what to do, and I'll do it. Don't make me think about it. Just tell me what to do. And so I'll check them on that. And I'll say, okay, so whatever I tell you to do, you promise you'll do exactly what I tell you without question. And I'll tell you the answer I get every single time I check that. Well, that depends. Depends on what you tell me.
mhm.
If I like what you tell me, sure. But if I don't like it, maybe not. And I'll say, okay, so what you really are looking for is you're looking for me to advise you. That's different. So I'm happy to give you my opinion. I'll give you advice. But let's be clear that if you're not, you're saying you want me to tell you what to do, but you really are going to decide what you're going to do based on the information I give you. So I make that distinction for them so that there's no confusion over the role they're seeking me to play. You're not asking me to coach at
Mhm.
all in this scenario. You thought you wanted me to teach you or train you on how to do it. But the truth is, you wanted to see what my experience was and get an opinion on it. And that's more of an advisor role. And that happens all the time. How about you, Kathryn? I mean, you've been in lots of scenarios with leaders. Which leadership style, now that you've seen those four, shows up most regularly in the environments you've been in?
Whew. I would say that there's definitely a mix depending on the situation, but definitely the advisor and the trainer show up a lot.
Hmm.
I would say the hardest thing for a leader to be is a coach because they have to step back and say, hey, I have to put the leader's goals aside and just really focus in on my team and what they want and what their goals are. And I think that can be hard when there's that outside pressure that a leader's getting. But I would say that here's kind of a tip. I think it's okay to go to your manager and say, hey, this is what I need. Today, I really need an advisor. Or, hey, today, what I really need is I need some coaching around this and I need it to be true coaching and call them out on it and say exactly what you need. Because I think just knowing these words that go with what you need can be helpful in that moment. There are times when I need a trainer and I don't want to coach because I don't even know where I want to start yet. And I need to start with the training side, and that's okay.
That's really good, and I think that fits really nicely with another topic that we've had, which is when you understand someone's disc style. It's the same thing. We find out along the way that we learn certain things about our own communication style. We start to learn things about the other, and it's our job then to be clear about, well, what do I need in this situation? And sometimes that's fluid. It changes as we get information. And so the way
Mhm.
you just defined that was really nice, which is understanding that I might have to explore that, build some trust with that leader to figure out, do I really need advice? Or maybe it turns out I actually do need some training on this. Maybe I'm over my skis. I don't know what to do. But I'm going to go with your first answer just to highlight something in case our audience didn't pick up on it. So often what you've seen is the advisor trainer role. And what's unique about what those two have in common is that that leader in both cases is leveraging their own skill set. And that tells me there's a lot of ego in that leader, meaning either they want to tell you what to do and how to do it, trainer, or they want to at least give you their opinion and their advice, both of which come from this idea of, I know how to do this, and I'm trying to get you to learn how to do it. I realize there are scenarios in which that's absolutely applicable, but if that's always where a leader goes, their ego is going to keep them from asking really good questions. And here's what they better be prepared for. They're not then preparing their team to figure out how to do it themselves. It's a lot like if, as a parent, you're always solving your kids' problems, you're not helping them develop the muscle and the confidence to solve their own problems. And so if you're listening today and as a leader, you resonated with Kathryn's comment around, that's what I've seen a lot of, is a lot of advising and training. Tap the brakes. Don't throw those out. Those aren't bad traits, but tap the brakes and say, is there a scenario here where I could maybe leverage the other person's skill set and not always lead from my own experience and start asking some better questions? That would be the key to that one. If you're that leader who's maybe not as great in the coach or manager role, you're better in the advisor or trainer role. Ask better questions. You might get better answers, and you'll certainly develop the talent and the team around you. So that's a really good tip for those who might have recognized that style. Let's take another blended style on that, because I think this is a good one. So let's say, let's shift the parameters a little bit and say that, okay, let's say you see the trainer more often with the manager, meaning they're always driving the agenda and they're never seeking out your agenda. And what that means is, as a leader, they always feel like they have to be the boss. They have to be in control. This is less about their ego or pride and more about what they perceive their role is that it's my job to stay in control. So if you're holding on, if that's you and you're the leader and you're always feeling like I've either got to train or I've got to manage. And remember, Kathryn, your example was a great one with the P&L. The train might be, we're going to spend time looking at these three different aspects of the P&L to train you on how to look for things and find things. But your manager example was, this is what I'm going to need for you to go and figure out. Like, I'm showing you where the gap is, but I need you to go figure out how to close that gap. In either of those cases, you're driving the agenda. Again, appropriate for a lot of scenarios, but from time to time, shift a little bit and maybe shift the focus back to the employee and ask them simple questions like, I don't know, that's what I think, but how about you? What do you think? How would you solve this problem if you were in charge of it? What other options do you see? And you might find yourself sliding more into the coach advisor role then, because you're putting that other person in a position of strength. So do you see how you can shift the polarity of these with just a little bit of thoughtfulness?
Oh, absolutely. I think so many times we don't ask enough questions that are open-ended questions because we think we already know the answer, or we maybe just think, hey, this is where we have to end up. And sometimes by asking the right questions, you can learn so much about the other person that you're talking to and their direction and maybe a whole new way to do it.
Yeah, that's very fair. One more came to mind, and I want to share this more because I sit in the seat of the coach, and I do find this from time to time with coaches who've gone through their ICF certification, and they view coaching as a legitimate profession, and therefore they have a code of conduct, and there's a certain like moral obligation to stay in that lane. So very, very often in those scenarios, they will run into someone who will get frustrated because they're just saying, I know you're asking me great questions, and I know you're trying to get my opinion. I know you're trying to get me to figure it out. I know, but I'm like really struggling here. Can you just tell me what to do? And for a pure coach in that ICF designation, or someone who's really committed to the art of coaching, that's a sticky wicket for them because they feel conflict. Like, well, I'm not really supposed to tell you what to do. This is a hard transition for them. I'm of the belief, and so this is just full disclosure for me, of I want to recognize that from time to time, especially when anxiety is present for that person, they don't need more questions. They just need answers. You can come back to them and play coach as soon as you help them get out of that moment. But if they're struggling with paralysis and their anxiety is now flooding, that cortisol is in the system and it's not fun for them, don't add to their agitation by asking more questions and showing more curiosity. It's a wonderful trait, but you have to, it's like read the room, read your audience, know what they're struggling with. And I've seen clients, I had that discussion with a client earlier today. He had just moved companies. He's with a new company that doesn't have a presence anywhere within, I think, 500 miles of the branch he's opening. So he's literally carrying the flag for this new brand, and he's overwhelmed. And I can tell that me being thoughtful as a coach wasn't what he needed today. What he needed was just help me sort through how to structure some basic fundamentals to my day. So we did. I shifted quickly into the trainer mode and said, okay, I understand. I'm going to tell you what to do here. You're going to do it. And then let's get back to that mode once you've got some traction. I think you just have to, as a leader, recognize that nuancing those based on the situation will help build more trust with the person who's following you.
And I think you have to understand what the other person needs. Obviously, in that situation, when you have high fear, high anxiety, you cannot be creative. It's those two things can rarely exist together. So someone is not going to be able to come up with a solution to their 75 problems that they see on their plate. And sometimes if you can have step one figured out for you, or step 1 and 2, you might be able to figure out the rest. So sometimes being a coach is stepping in. I think that's great.
Yeah. So I guess let's land on this. When you look at all four, they all four have strengths, but landing in any one of those four and camping there all the time as a leader is going to show some weakness. And at some point you want to be thoughtful of that. When we blend a couple of them, we've given examples of that. Again, there can be real strength there, but recognize the counterbalance of them, because from time to time, if you don't show counterbalance, you will lose trust with someone, and you may even lose their momentum to grow as an individual. And really, as a leader, I think that's maybe one of the most important things I could encourage someone to do as a leader, is to bring along the people that are serving with them and raise them up. Like we've seen all these graphics online about the difference between, the manager who's cracking a whip and the leader who's really helping pull the weight. Well, these are visual examples of the mindset shift. And so that's maybe where I want to leave this topic today, is if you find yourself as a leader stuck in any one of these four, or stuck blending 2 of the 4, but not recognizing the strength of counterbalancing those, this is your opportunity to expand your growth mindset as a leader and develop some skill. And if you'd like more information on this one, I'd be happy to have that conversation with any client or anyone listening on our podcast who'd like to talk more about it. So, Kathryn, I really am glad you brought this one back into view, because you're right. We touched on it on a previous episode, but really didn't unpack it. So I enjoyed being able to highlight those today. Any closing thoughts or questions before we wrap up?
I think that this is a great one just to think about and say, hey, what do I need? How do I show up to other people? How can I pivot from one to the next? How do I know which one I need to be in that moment? And I think those are great things to journal out, and let us know if you have questions. All right. So with that, I'm going to close out the 4 rules of a team leader. And please catch us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, all the places. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Please like and share.